Hello everyone, it's been a while, but hopefully today we are back with a video that you will enjoy, and it's a format that I got the inspiration from the podcast 2 Hot Takes, which I will link below. It's really fun, and basically I'm gonna read stories from Reddit, from the subreddit Am I the Asshole? And a person will tell a story and ask the community if they are assholes or not in that situation. In the 2 Hot Takes podcast, normally the stories are about any topic like marriage, family, work, etc, etc. But for this one, obviously, we are in a language learning channel, so all the stories will be language learning related in some way. So I'm going to read through a couple of stories today, and you can decide with me if the person is an asshole or not. So the first story was published 11 months ago, and it goes, Am I the asshole for only speaking my mother language in my home and making my son's girlfriend uncomfortable? I, 41 male, am originally American. I moved to Norway over 2 decades ago for school and met my wife, 38 female, Mary. We have 3 kids, 16 male John, 14 female and 13 male. The other names are not mentioned. Mary and I both think being at least bilingual is a necessary skill, so we speak English in our home. So far, I agree. The kids are free to speak in either English or Norwegian at home, and my wife will speak Norwegian about 50% of the time, but I speak English 99% of the time at home. I do so because it both comes easier to me and I would hate to get rusty, plus it's a nice respite from my work life where I seldom get to speak English. On to the story. A few months ago, John started dating a girl, 16 female, Hannah, and he introduced her to the family in early December. She's a very sweet girl and has definitely been good to him. She seemed a bit quiet, but I didn't really pay it any mind. Until last Thursday, Hannah came over for dinner, and about halfway through, John was staring daggers at me. After dinner, Hannah left and John said he needed to speak to me. He told me that Hannah was too intimidated to speak and has felt excluded since she met me because her English isn't the best. I asked if she was having a hard time understanding me, and if so, I can speak slower and more clearly. He told me that wasn't enough and I needed to speak Norwegian so that she doesn't feel like an idiot spectator in my presence. For context, both of his siblings still spoke Norwegian and they were leading most of the discussion alongside Mary. I told my son that this is my home and I will speak in the language I want. I can accommodate his girlfriend in any other way, but this has been the agreement in our house since he was born. He called me a stubborn jerk and said that this is Norway, people speak Norwegian, and that it was unfair that she should feel like an idiot just because she doesn't speak my mother tongue. Mary, the wife, chimed in and said that he should give Hannah lessons if it was a big problem and that she could help him do so. John said that wasn't the point and then stormed off to his room. He hasn't been speaking to me since, and both of his siblings have said I should just speak Norwegian when she's here. My wife is on my side and said he'll get over it eventually, but said if it really bothers me, I should just concede. My co-workers are split on the issue, and so I'm here. Am I the asshole? There's a couple of updates still, but my opinion so far, I kind of would go for you're the asshole. Because, well, the thing is, if he didn't speak Norwegian, obviously that would be absolutely unfair of anyone to expect him to speak Norwegian. But he does speak Norwegian and understands it, and he lives in Norway for 20 years, I think. So he definitely could do that. So it's a bit strange, because he kind of like says that that's been the rule in the house, and I get that that would be the dynamics in the family. But there's a new guest, so I feel like being really strict about that rule is a bit strange and actually rude, I would say, especially because he could accommodate her in a way that's way easier for her than English. So yeah, I'm gonna go for you're the asshole. I don't know what you guys think, but let me know in the comments. Let's have a look at the comments and see what some of the people think about the situation. So first comment, soft, you're the asshole. I get where you're coming from, your home, etc. But you said she has visited only a few times. A considerate host speaks the most common language for the guests. If you don't want to, fine, but then you'd be an inconsiderate host, and that is a synonym for asshole. Might I recommend starting out in Norwegian, then when she's more comfortable with you, your family, offer to help her practice her English? That's kind of a reasonable take, but I do agree. Like, if the guest is not comfortable with the language and you are able to speak that other language, then why don't you go for that one? That's a little bit strange. Yeah. Someone says, this has very strong, this is America, speak English vibes. I kind of agree, I suppose. Let's have a look at the other comments. No assholes here. I get why Hannah asked, but it's still your home, and this is what you usually do in your home. You don't speak English just to annoy her or make her feel left out. You do it because it's your mother tongue and it's your home. I'm also a foreigner living in Norway, and we speak both English and Norwegian in our household. No children yet, though. But I work with children, and I know that kids nowadays are generally very good in English. And she herself said that she has issues speaking English. Then she can just reply in Norwegian. That's a fair point. If her understanding is good, then she can just reply in Norwegian because there's, OP, original poster, understands Norwegian. So... yeah. So now on to a negative comment to kind of keep it balanced. You're the asshole. You're deliberately making a guest on your home, your son's girlfriend, feel uncomfortable and excluded. If you're able to speak a language everyone in the room understands, but choose to speak a language someone is not comfortably fluent in, that's just rude. I would agree. Also, you're encouraging your son to spend less time at home and telling him you don't give a about his relationship or his girlfriend. That's a very good point. I do agree, that's kind of a difficult one. Let's move on to the edits, because there's a few edits made by OP. So first edit, English is taught in schools here at a very young age, and from what I've heard from Hannah speaking, she's pretty good, just uncomfortable. Okay, so she does have good English. Okay. Edit number 2, I realized I said a decade instead of 2. I moved when I was 20, or maybe that was edited in the first, in the post. Yeah. Edit 3, a bit of a longer one. I am extremely surprised by the volume of comments on this post. While I think a lot of commenters here don't understand how common English is here, or the general level of proficiency, especially amongst the young, making Hannah uncomfortable is not my goal, and I really do think she's very, very good for and to John. I will apologize to John in the morning and ask if him, Hannah and I can sit down and talk about how I can make her feel more comfortable visiting our home. Speaking Norwegian. Thank you to all the commenters here, even the ones who call my son a dick. That's mean. Which he isn't, just a teenager trying to navigate his first relationship. Edit 4. Why did I wake up to so many comments filled with seething rage? The name calling is rather unnecessary. What nerve did I strike in the American psyche that so many would be so angry? I talked with my son this morning, or rather he talked to me. He told me he was sorry about the something in Norwegian. I don't know, I can't read it. And I apologized for dismissing him completely. I'm taking him and his girlfriend out for lunch today. Edit 5, post-lunch update. All the commenters who said she was just shy and intimidated were right. And everyone who said she couldn't keep up was wrong. Long story, my son and I drove to Hannah's house and he admitted that he didn't warn her well enough about what the situation was at home as we drove. When we picked her up, I greeted her in Norwegian and we had some small talk on the way to the restaurant. She started speaking English after we sat down and told me that she thought I was speaking English because I didn't like her, as some commenters suggested. I assured her that wasn't the case and told her about the rules I have in my home. I emphasized the fact that at no point would I demand she speak to me in English. She admitted that she hadn't really spoken to a native English speaker and, along with being mostly blindsided by me speaking only English when most of our family dinner discussions were in Norwegian, told my son that she couldn't keep up when he asked why she didn't talk much as a knee-jerk response. She also said she really wanted to make a good impression on me but just kind of froze when trying to formulate sentences. Oh, bless. I asked John why he didn't warn her, and he said he thought you warned her well enough by saying that our house is bilingual and to expect to hear a lot of English. I can sort of understand the problem in the miscommunication, because if you're born in a bilingual household, like I have, it kind of seems so normal that you feel like maybe people will know what that is, but if people are were born in a monolingual household, then they might not know what it's like actually. They just don't know. On the way back, I asked Hannah if she wanted me to speak Norwegian to her when she comes for dinner again, and thank God, brackets, I already have the asshole judgment and I don't care if dumb Redditors think I'm an ass for saying that. She said it wasn't necessary, but she'll probably be speaking Norwegian. So am I the asshole? Probably. But it worked out, and not the asshole commenters who said she was just intimidated, shy, and wanted to make a good impression were right, and all the vitriol and Anglophobic Americans were wrong about her not understanding English. I'm going to make a point of telling my younger two to actually warn future significant others about this and warn me before problems arise so that I can avoid the painful irony of reading illiterate commenters project their own lack of proficiency with English on my problems. Thank you for reading, commenting, and down voting. I may make snide remarks, but this was actually helpful and made me realize that my house rule may be too rigid. Still gonna speak English in my goddamn house 98% of the time. We moved down 1%. That was an interesting story. What do you think? The edit kind of gives a bit of perspective in the sense that it wasn't trying to be mean or rude. It just was kind of a new situation for him as well to be in the presence of a monolingual person. So I guess it's a lesson learned. All right, I will do one more story, and do let me know if you enjoyed this format. I think it's fun. I like the idea of reacting to stories about bilingualism and language learning stuff. So hopefully you enjoy it as well. All right, on to the second story. Am I the asshole for pointing out to my co-worker that you don't know a language if you can't speak or understand it? Ooh, this one is kind of making my blood boil. Let's see. A new guy joined my team at work today. We work remotely and there are weekly meetings. He seems nice enough. Our team lead, whenever we get someone new, likes to have the rest of the team introduce themselves. It's the same, my name is X, I'm from Y, and one interesting fact about me is Z, that practically everyone had to do in high school on the first day of class. New guy's interesting fact about himself was that he knew Chinese. Of course, our team lead asked him to say something in the language. He then clarified that he can't speak it or understand it when it was spoken to him, but could read and write it. He then picked up a notepad and scribbled what he said meant thanks for having me on the team, but no one could confirm the accuracy because no one else knows any Chinese. Interesting. I'm not finished reading, but that's kind of a case of like a passive bilingual, although he can write, so it's not really passive fully, but at least he's not able to produce orally the language. I would say that still counts as bilingual or fluent, but again, depends on how fluent that person is with reading and writing, obviously. Let's carry on. I asked how it was possible to be able to read and write but not speak it, and he says he knows pronunciations but never remembers the right tones, and that people speaking Chinese tend to speak too quickly for him. I told him that technically saying he knows Chinese is an exaggeration. It's like if I said I know Spanish because I could text with my Mexican mother-in-law but couldn't follow at all when she's talking with my wife in Spanish. You might know some of it, but you don't know it. The meeting got awkward, understandably, and quiet, and afterwards my team lead pulled me into a private call to say I wasn't being welcoming. Later, another co-worker, that new guy was shadowing, told me new guy had apologized to her if he came off as a liar and had asked if he should take knowing Chinese off his resume. I think he's being too sensitive. Like, it's cool if you can read Chinese writing, but it still doesn't count as knowing Chinese. Am I the asshole? I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, first, why did he have to die on that hill? Like, it didn't seem like it mattered. Sure, you could think, oh, well, this person is just trying to act cooler than they are, but in that job, it doesn't really matter, it seems, because no one speaks Chinese, so I guess it's not a requirement for the job. It was more like a fun fact kind of thing. So it's kind of weird, especially on the first day, to kind of go against that co-worker for that. I don't think I would have done it. Maybe I would have asked questions and been like, oh, like, do you speak it? Like, how did you learn? Whatever. But then I would have kept to myself the fact that he only can read or write it. Even then, I still think that counts for fluency. But the thing is, like, fluency is kind of understood usually as being able to speak. And the other skills are kind of, I wouldn't say forgotten about totally, but kind of, I guess. And I mean that perspective or point of view is more within the general population. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of an asshole for like being rude about it because it didn't really matter. And I think maybe he's also an asshole for being like, oh, he's too sensitive. I'm like, dude, you kind of like were rude to him. You kind of went for it and insisted. And yeah, I don't know where he was pushing it. Let's have a look at the comments, what people think. So first comment, you're the asshole. Just let him be instead of making him uncomfortable. Sure, he could have specified that he can write and read Chinese, but he also never said he speaks Chinese. You came off as the actually guy. I agree. That's kind of what it came across as. I agree. You're the asshole. Yes, he probably could have phrased it differently, but there was no need for you to have a go at him like that. As the not new employee, you should have been more welcoming. That's why people are mad at you. yeah, I think the attitude is the problem really for me. He carries on. Also this, so the person quotes, I asked how it was possible to be able to read and write but not speak it. And the commenter goes on to say, shows that you have no idea what you're talking about and had no business criticizing him. The different tones and inflections are very difficult to master. It makes perfect sense that he has learned the written language but is struggling with the spoken part. Yeah, I agree. Like, you know, you tend to be more comfortable with reading or possibly writing than speaking and listening. It depends, but that's sort of a trend I feel exists when you learn a language. Let's read the last comment. You're the asshole. This wasn't a language fluency exam, it was just his fun fact. Agreed. Being able to read and write in another language is a fun fact. Yes, he could have been clearer that I have reading comprehension of Chinese rather than I know Chinese, but if we're quibbling over technicalities, it sounds like he said he knows Chinese and not I speak Chinese, which he doesn't. You were indeed not being welcoming. If someone said their fun fact was that they were 6'2", and I took out a measuring tape and proved that technically they're only just over 6'1", I wouldn't be incorrect, but I would be an asshole. That's a very good analogy, actually. You just humiliated this man in front of new co-workers for no reason. I agree. Like, I would feel uncomfortable. Like, yeah, it was just supposed to be a fun fact. Like, it didn't really matter unless it was something that was like harmful in any way. But yeah. Alright, so that's it for this video. Please feel free to let me know your thoughts about the different stories. Maybe you have a different take from mine. Maybe you disagree with my judgment, let's say. And also let me know if you enjoyed this format. That was kind of fun to do. And I've got more stories that I can, I'm sure, find. And we can sort of dissect together. Alright, so I will leave you to it. And I hope to see you in a future video. Bye.